My name's Connor, and this happened to me in the fall of 2023. I was 27, driving from Boise, Idaho to Salt Lake City, Utah for a buddy's wedding. It was a 5-hour trip, one I'd done a couple of times before, so I wasn't worried. I loved road trips, the open road, the quiet, just me and my thoughts. I left Boise around 8 p.m. on a Thursday, figuring I'd get to Salt Lake by 1 a.m. and crash at a motel. The weather was chilly with a bit of fog rolling in, but nothing crazy. My old Jeep was reliable, my playlist was solid, and I had a thermos of coffee to keep me sharp. I had no idea that night would change me forever. I was on I-84 about an hour out of Boise, cruising through southern Idaho. It's a lonely stretch, nothing but scrubland, the occasional farmhouse, and those big, empty skies that make you feel small. The fog was getting thicker, curling across the highway like smoke, so I slowed down to about 55. My headlights cut through the haze, but visibility was maybe 50 feet. I wasn't stressed, though. I'd driven in worse. I turned up the radio, some old rock song, and settled in for the long haul. That's when I saw the sign. It was one of those green highway signs, reflective, bolted to a metal post. It read, "Detour to Salt Lake City, exit 47, 2 miles. I frowned. I didn't remember an exit 47, and my GPS hadn't said anything about a detour. I checked my phone. Google Maps was still showing I-84 as the main route, no construction or accidents. But the signal was weak, and the app kept buffering. I figured maybe there was roadwork up ahead that hadn't updated yet. The fog was getting bad, and I didn't want to risk hitting a work crew or a closed lane. So when exit 47 appeared, I took it. The off-ramp curved into a 2-lane road, asphalt cracked and faded, flanked by dry grass and twisted juniper trees. No streetlights, no other cars, just me. The sign at the bottom said, Salt Lake City, 280 miles. That checked out, so I kept going. The fog was heavier here, clinging to the ground, and my headlights seemed to dim like the light was being swallowed. I shook it off, told myself it was just the weather. But something felt wrong. The air in the Jeep was colder, even with the heater on. My breath fogged up and I could feel my pulse in my throat. I drove for maybe 20 minutes, expecting to see a town or at least a gas station. Nothing. Just the road, stretching endlessly into the dark. My GPS was useless now, no signal, just a frozen screen showing me in the middle of nowhere. I tried calling my buddy in Salt Lake, but the call wouldn't connect. Static hissed through the speakers when I switched to the radio, no matter what station I tried. I was starting to get nervous, but I told myself to stay calm. Roads like this were normal in rural Idaho. I'd hit I-84 again soon. Then I saw the mile marker, 47. I thought it was weird, same number as the exit. 10 minutes later, another one, 47 again. I slowed down, my stomach twisting. That couldn't be right. Mile markers don't repeat. I kept driving, eyes locked on the side of the road. 5 minutes later, another marker, 47. My hands tightened on the wheel. I wasn't imagining it. The fog was so thick now I could barely see 20 feet ahead, and the road felt narrower, like it was closing in. I stopped the car, engine idling, and tried to think. Maybe I'd missed a turn, looped back somehow. I checked my odometer. I'd driven 30 miles since the exit. No way I was circling. I looked around, but the fog was a wall, swallowing everything. That's when I heard it. A sound, faint at first, like gravel crunching under boots. It was coming from behind the Jeep. I checked my mirrors, nothing but fog. The crunching got louder, closer, like someone was walking toward me. My heart was hammering. I locked the doors, put the Jeep in gear, and peeled out, tires squealing. I drove faster, 60, then 70, the road bumping under me. The crunching stopped, but now there was something else, a low hum, like a machine or a voice just at the edge of hearing. It was in the car, in my head, everywhere. I turned off the radio, but it didn't stop. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely steer. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, expecting to see headlights or a figure. Nothing. Just fog. But I couldn't shake the feeling I wasn't alone. Then I saw it, a shape in the fog, right in the middle of the road. Human, maybe, but tall, too tall, its outline blurry. I slammed on the brakes, the Jeep skidding. The shape didn't move. It just stood there, maybe 30 feet away, barely visible. I honked, shouted, "Get out of the way." No response. I edged forward, trying to see. The fog parted for a second, and I saw its face, or where its face should have been. It was blank, smooth, like a mannequin, but its head was tilted, like it was studying me. My blood went cold. I threw the Jeep into reverse, flooring it, not caring if I hit something. I drove backward for maybe a mile, eyes glued to the road ahead. The shape was gone, but the hum was louder, vibrating in my chest. I stopped, panting, and tried to think. I couldn't keep going like this. I needed to turn around, get back to I-84. I spun the Jeep around, praying I'd see a sign, anything. That's when my headlights caught it, another mile marker, 47. I screamed, slamming my fists on the wheel. This wasn't possible. I was trapped, stuck in some kind of loop. The hum turned into a whisper, words I couldn't make out, like a crowd murmuring just out of reach. My phone lit up even though it had no signal. The screen showed a photo I hadn't taken, a blurry image of me sitting in the Jeep, taken from outside the driver's window. My face was pale, eyes wide, like I was already dead. I dropped the phone, my hands numb. Something tapped on the passenger window. Slow, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't look. I couldn't. I just drove, tears streaming down my face, begging for it to stop. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt wrong, like it was bending. The fog never lifted, the road never changed. I was sobbing, talking to myself, promising God I'd do anything if I got out. Then, out of nowhere, I saw a light. Not headlights, a glow, warm, like a building. It was a gas station, sitting alone on the right side of the road. The sign was old, neon flickering, last chance fuel. I pulled in, nearly crashing into a pump, and sat there, shaking. The whispers stopped. The hum was gone. I got out, legs wobbly, and stumbled toward the station. The door was unlocked, but the place was empty. No clerk, no customers. The lights buzzed, flickering. There was a map on the counter, hand-drawn, showing a road labeled Route 47, looping back on itself. A red X marked the gas station. Written next to it, in shaky handwriting, "Don't stop driving." My stomach dropped. I grabbed the map, ran back to the Jeep, and peeled out. I didn't look back. I drove for what felt like forever, the fog thinning slightly. The mile markers stopped at 47. Then, like a miracle, I saw a sign for I-84. I merged onto the highway, sobbing with relief. The fog was gone, the sky clear. My GPS came back online, showing me back on track. I made it to Salt Lake City at 4 a.m., checked into a motel, and didn't sleep. I kept the lights on, the map clutched in my hand. I looked up Route 47 later. There's no record of it, no exit 47 on I-84. I asked locals, truckers, even a highway patrol officer. No one's heard of it. But I found a forum online, buried deep, where a few drivers mentioned a detour they couldn't explain. One guy said he saw a tall figure with no face. Another said his radio whispered his name. They all mentioned mile marker 47. I don't drive at night anymore. I sold the Jeep, moved to a city where I don't need a car. But I still have the map folded in a drawer. Sometimes, late at night, I hear it, a faint hum, like it's calling me back. And last week, I found a new photo on my phone. It's me, standing by my apartment window, looking out, taken from outside. I live on the 5th floor. My name's Mia, and this happened to me in the spring of 2024. I was 25, driving from Denver, Colorado, to Cheyenne, Wyoming, to visit my parents for the weekend. It's a short trip, about 2 hours, mostly straight up I-25. I'd done it 100 times growing up, so I didn't think twice about leaving late. I hit the road around 9 p.m. on a Friday, my little hatchback loaded with a duffel bag and a playlist of indie rock. The sky was clear, stars bright above the plains, and I was in a good mood, singing along, feeling free. I had no clue that night would turn into the worst of my life. I was about 45 minutes out of Denver, just past Fort Collins, when the radio started acting up. The music cut out, replaced by static, harsh, crackling, like a storm was interfering. I fiddled with the dial, but every station was the same. I figured it was just a dead zone. Northern Colorado can be spotty. I switched to my phone, plugging it into the AUX cord, but the static came through the speakers anyway, louder now, almost rhythmic. I yanked the cord out and it stopped. Weird, but I shrugged it off. I didn't need music to stay awake. The highway was quiet, just me and a few distant taillights. I was cruising at 70, the plains stretching out black and endless on both sides. That's when I noticed the CB radio under the dash. It was an old thing, left by the car's previous owner. I'd never used it, didn't even know if it worked. But as I glanced down, the power light flickered on, glowing green. Then, a voice came through, low, gravelly, like someone talking through a bad connection. "Mia," it said, just my name, clear as day. I froze, my hands tightening on the wheel. No one knew I was out here, and I hadn't told anyone my route. I stared at the CB, heart pounding. The voice came again, slower this time. Mia, where you going? My mouth went dry. I told myself it was a prank, some trucker messing with me. I grabbed the mic, my voice shaking, and said, "Who is this?" "Stop it." No answer, just static, pulsing like a heartbeat. I turned the CB off or tried to, the switch wouldn't budge. The light stayed on. I sped up, pushing 80, wanting to get to Cheyenne, to people, to safety. The static kept going, now mixed with whispers, too faint to make out. I checked my rearview mirror, half expecting to see a truck tailing me. Nothing but darkness. My phone was on the passenger seat, and I grabbed it to call my dad. No signal. The screen showed searching, even though I was on a major highway. I tossed it down, my hands sweaty, and focused on the road. That's when the CB spoke again. "You can't outrun it, Mia." I screamed, swerving slightly. The voice wasn't just gravelly now, it was wrong, layered, like multiple people speaking at once. I ripped the mic cord out of the CB, but the static didn't stop. It was coming from the car speakers, the air everywhere. I slammed the power button on the stereo, but it wouldn't turn off. The whispers were clearer now, saying things like, "Closer and watch you." I was crying, begging it to stop, but it just got louder, filling the car. Then I saw headlights in my rearview mirror. A vehicle, maybe a pickup, high beams glaring, coming up fast. It was too close, tailgating me, the light blinding. I floored it, hitting 90, the hatchback shaking. The truck matched my speed, never passing, just sitting there, inches from my bumper. I couldn't see the driver, the cab was dark, like the light didn't reach it. I honked, shouted, "Back off," but it didn't budge. The CB crackled, and the voice said, "Look behind you, Mia." I didn't want to. God, I didn't want to. But I glanced in the mirror just for a second. The truck was gone. No headlights, no sound, nothing. Just the empty highway. My heart was in my throat. I slowed down, thinking I'd imagined it, but the static surged, so loud it hurt my ears. The voice screamed, "Look." I checked the mirror again, and there was a face. Not in the truck, pressed against the rear windshield of my car inside. Pale, eyeless, mouth stretched wide, like it was smiling. I screamed, swerving hard, nearly going off the road. I corrected the car, sobbing, and looked again. The face was gone, but the back seat wasn't empty. Something was there, a shape, hunched, barely visible in the dark. I could hear it breathing, slow, wet, like it was savoring the air. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I just drove, tears blurring my vision, praying I'd see a town or a cop. The CB kept talking, the voice now a hiss. "You invited me in, Mia. You let me ride." I don't know what it meant. I hadn't invited anything. I kept driving, the shape in the back seat shifting slightly, like it was leaning closer. My skin was crawling, my whole body shaking. I saw a sign for a rest area, 10 miles ahead, and aimed for it, hoping for people, light, anything. The static was unbearable now, words cutting through. "Stay with me, forever." I shouted, "Leave me alone," and slammed my fist on the dash. The CB sparked, smoke curling from it, and the static cut out. For a moment it was quiet, just my ragged breathing and the hum of the engine. I thought it was over. Then I felt it, a hand, cold as ice, on my shoulder. Not grabbing, just resting there, heavy, deliberate. I froze, too scared to move. The breathing was louder now, right behind my ear. Something whispered, not through the CB, but in the car, inches from me. "Don't stop driving." My vision tunneled. I wanted to pull over, to run, but I couldn't. My hands wouldn't leave the wheel, like they were glued. I made it to the rest area, a small lot with a gas station and a few parked semis. I skidded to a stop under a streetlight, threw the door open, and ran inside the station, screaming for help. The clerk, an older guy, looked at me like I was crazy but let me stay in the office. I told him about the voice, the face, the hand. He didn't say much, just handed me a coffee and said, "This highway's got stories." I sat there until dawn, too terrified to go back to my car. When I finally did, the CB was dead, wires fried. The back seat was empty, but there was a smell rotten, like something had been there. I drove to Cheyenne, shaking the whole way, and told my parents I'd hit a deer to explain why I was a mess. I didn't sleep for days. I kept feeling that hand on my shoulder, hearing that breath in my ear. I had the car checked by a mechanic, thinking maybe the CB was faulty, picking up some weird signal. He said it hadn't worked in years, the battery long dead. I looked up I-25 later, digging through old forums and news articles. There's talk of a stretch between Fort Collins and Cheyenne where drivers hear things, voices, static, names called out. Some say it's a ghost, a drifter who died on the road decades ago looking for a ride. Others say it's something older, something that lives in the plains waiting for someone to answer. I don't know what I believe, but I know what I felt. That thing was real and it knew me. I don't drive alone anymore. I take buses, trains, anything to avoid being on the road at night. But it's not over. Last month, I was at my apartment watching TV when the screen glitched, static filling it. Through the noise, I heard my name in that same gravelly voice. I unplugged the TV, moved to a new place, but I still hear static sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone. And last week, I woke up with a bruise on my shoulder, shaped like a hand. My name's Javier, and this happened to me in the winter of 2024. I was 30, driving from Tucson, Arizona to Las Vegas, Nevada for a work conference. It's a 7-hour trip mostly through empty desert, but I didn't mind. I loved the solitude of long drives, just me, my pickup truck, and the road. I left Tucson at 4 p.m. on a Sunday, planning to get to Vegas by midnight. The sun was setting, painting the sky red over the saguaros, and I was sipping an energy drink, my favorite podcast playing. I felt good, ready for the week ahead. I had no idea I'd spend that night fighting to survive something I still can't explain. I was on I-10 for the first couple of hours, cruising through southern Arizona. The desert's beautiful at dusk, but it gets eerie once the sun's gone. By 7 p.m. I was on US 93, a lonely two-lane highway cutting through miles of nothing, sand, scrub, and the occasional Joshua tree. There were no other cars, no lights, just my headlights slicing the dark. My podcast cut out around then, the signal dropping. I tried the radio, but it was just static, so I drove in silence, the hum of the engine my only company. About an hour into US 93, I saw lights in the distance. 3 of them hovering low over the desert, maybe a mile off the road. They were bright, bluish-white, like LEDs, moving in a slow, circular pattern. I figured they were drones, maybe kids messing around or some kind of test out here in the middle of nowhere. Arizona's got military bases, so weird lights aren't unheard of. Still, they gave me a funny feeling, like I was seeing something I wasn't supposed to. I kept driving, glancing at them every few seconds. They didn't seem to get closer or farther, just kept circling, steady as a heartbeat. I checked my phone to see if I could record them, but I had no signal, not surprising out here. The clock said 8:15 p.m., which felt right. I kept going, trying to focus on the road, but those lights were hard to ignore. They were hypnotic, almost pulling my eyes toward them. That's when my truck's dashboard flickered. The speedometer jumped to 120, then dropped to 0, even though I was steady at 65. The headlights dimmed, and the engine sputtered like it was choking. I cursed, tapping the dash, and the truck stabilized, but my heart was racing. Something wasn't right. I drove another 10 minutes, and the lights were still there, same distance, same pattern. I told myself to ignore them, but then I heard a sound, a low buzz, like a swarm of bees, faint but growing. It wasn't coming from the truck, it was outside in the air. I rolled up my windows, locked the doors, and sped up to 75. The buzz got louder, closer, until it felt like it was right above me. I glanced up through the windshield, half expecting to see a drone. Nothing but stars. The lights in the desert stopped circling. They froze, then started moving toward the road, toward me. I floored it, hitting 90, the truck rattling. The lights were gaining, cutting across the desert, their glow brighter now, almost blinding. My chest was tight, my hands sweaty on the wheel. I didn't know what they were, but I knew I didn't want them near me. The buzz was deafening, vibrating through the truck, making my teeth ache. Then my phone lit up, even with no signal. The screen showed static like an old TV, and a voice came through, not from the speakers, but inside the car. It was deep, mechanical, saying, "Pull over, Javier." My name. It knew my name. I screamed, "No way," and kept driving, my foot jammed on the gas. The voice repeated, "Pull over." Now. I threw the phone into the back seat, but it kept talking, the static crackling like laughter. The lights were closer, maybe 100 yards away, skimming the ground. They weren't drones, they moved too smoothly, too fast, like they were alive. I could see shapes in the glow, vague, humanoid, but wrong, their limbs too long, heads too small. My stomach lurched. I wasn't just scared. I was terrified, the kind of fear that makes you feel like you're already dead. The truck's engine sputtered again, worse this time. The headlights went out completely, plunging me into darkness except for the blue glow chasing me. I was driving blind, the road barely visible. I shouted, praying, begging for it to stop. The voice on the phone changed, now a chorus, whispering, "You're ours, Javier. You're ours." I felt something cold brush my neck, like fingers, but the cab was empty. I swerved, nearly going off the road, and the headlights flickered back on. The lights were right beside me now, pacing the truck, one on each side of the highway. I don't know how I kept driving. My whole body was shaking, my vision blurry with tears. The shapes in the lights were clearer, tall, thin, their heads tilted like they were curious. Their eyes, if you could call them that, were black, glinting like oil. I screamed at them, "Leave me alone," but the buzzing drowned me out. The truck's radio turned on by itself, blasting static mixed with my own voice, distorted, saying, "Pull over. Pull over." I ripped the volume knob off, but it didn't stop. The air in the cab was freezing, my breath fogging, and I could smell something burnt like charred metal. Then I saw a sign, "Rest area, 5 miles. Hope hit me like a drug. If I could get there, maybe there'd be people, truckers, anyone. I pushed the truck to 100, the engine screaming. The lights kept pace, the shapes inside them reaching out, their arms stretching impossibly long toward the truck. I felt pressure like something was trying to pull me off the road, my hands fighting the wheel. The voice on the phone was louder, chanting my name, Javier, 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 like a taunt. I was sobbing, yelling, "I'm not yours." But it felt like I was losing, like they were already inside me. The rest area appeared, a small lot with a gas station and a single streetlight. I skidded in, tires screeching, and parked right under the light. The buzzing stopped. The lights in the desert vanished like they'd been switched off. My phone went dark, the voice silent. I sat there, gripping the wheel, gasping for air. The cab was warm again, the smell gone. I didn't move for an hour, too scared to even blink. Finally, I got out, legs like jelly, and staggered into the gas station. The clerk, a bored guy in his 20s, looked at me like I was drunk. I tried to explain, but my voice was hoarse, the words jumbling. He just nodded, said, "Desert's weird at night, man." I stayed until sunrise, parked beside a semi, the driver snoring inside. When I got back in the truck, there was a mark on the driver's side window, a smudge, like a handprint, but too long, too thin. The radio was dead, wires melted. I drove to Vegas, shaking the whole way, and checked into my hotel. I didn't go to the conference. I barely left my room, jumping at every noise. I told my boss I was sick, but I was broken, replaying that night over and over. I looked up US 93 later, scouring the internet for answers. There are stories, old ones, from truckers and locals about lights in the desert, things that follow drivers, voices that know your name. Some say it's aliens, others say it's spirits, tied to the land, hungry for anyone who strays too far. A few posts mentioned handprints, always on the driver's side. One guy said he found scratches inside his truck like something had been sitting with him. I checked my truck after reading that. There were marks on the passenger seat, claw-like, deep in the leather. I sold the truck the next week. I don't drive through the desert anymore. I moved back to Tucson, got a desk job, stay where there's noise and people. But it's not over. Sometimes when I'm alone, I hear a buzz, faint, like it's waiting. Last month, I woke up to my TV on, static filling the screen, my name whispered through the noise. And 2 nights ago, I found a handprint on my bedroom window. I live in a second-floor apartment.